Hello, I'm Faraz Osman. I am the founder and MD of Indie Goldwaller. Thank you very much for joining us. I should start by saying I am not a morning person. So if I start saying things that make no sense whatsoever, please be patient and polite with me, because I'm trying my best at this time in the morning. But before we start, I wanted to give a huge thanks to Magic Light. They're in their 13th special this year, being making stuff with Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler, I'm sure you know. They're premiering their new Christmas special on BBC One this year, which is going to be Scarecrow's Wedding. Look at that. No prompting allowed. These guys are pros. The CMC depends massively on our sponsors, so we're really, really grateful for Magic Light in sponsoring this session. So thank you very, very much. We've got a lot to get through, and we have been soliciting questions since we've announced CMC pretty much, so we've got some brilliant things to chat about across this session. So thank you all for joining us. I know people are still filtering in, but we are going to crack on because we want to try and cover as much as possible in this session. We have a ridiculously experienced and talented panel here. I'm slightly intimidated. But I'll do my best. I'm going to start with Emma, who is Emma Hardy, as if we're best mates. Emma Hardy, Executive Commercial and Brand Director at Aardman. Welcome along. I'm going to ask some questions. I mean, if you could take one thing, one person, and turn them into plasticine, who would it be?
Oh my God, that's a good question. Generally, everyone wants to see themselves in plasticine.
Is there a plasticine version of you?
Yeah, not yet.
When you don't get a commission, do you make plasticine versions of the commissioners and squash them?
I mean, I'd love to see that. Well, little voodoo doll, no.
Gillian Board, who's the president of Kids and Family at Media One. If you could take a cartoon character from kids' TV and put them at the state banquet with Macron, who would it be?
Whoosh. That's an unprepared question.
There's only one answer.
That wouldn't be a cartoon, that would be a puppet. Kermit?
Kermit. I was going to say Paddington. I think everyone here has to say Paddington, don't they? But you could. Kermit is
good. Be a bit French.
Kermit is a good choice, although I feel like I should. I'm going to make a joke about. No, I'm not going to do that about frog legs. I'm not going to talk about frog legs.
No.
Patricia Hidalgo, who is the Director of Children's Education at the BBC. Patricia, there's an argument to say that you're single-handedly saving the licence fee and children's TV production. I'm just wondering what your kind of wind-down routine is in the evening. So.
Well, I watch a lot of cartoons.
And Ollie Hyatt MBE, as I keep being reminded. Look at you have to curtsy when you see him, that's all I'm saying. Ollie, you've got obviously the blocks universe. You've got Number, Alpha, Wonder and Colour. Has there any been blocks that didn't quite make the cutting room floor? Has there been Brexit blocks? Have you done quantum physics
there are more blocks. There are more blocks coming.
The which blocks, sorry?
More blocks coming. That's not the show name.
Okay, there's more blocks are coming. Yeah. It's easy, isn't it? Well, thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, it is worth drawing your attention to some news that you may be aware of. Last week, the Culture, Media and Sports Committee launched a new parliamentary inquiry into children's television and video content in the UK. This was a direct result of the hard work that the Children's Media Foundation have been campaigning on, and their push during the media bill helped bring this inquiry to the table. So big thanks and congratulations to the CMF, who have also produced this session. I think, if anything deserves a round of applause across this whole conference, it is that, because that's a really big deal. So please do give a massive round of applause, because it's massively important for everyone in this room. There's a note here about Question Time being sponsored by Magic Light. Magic Light, you've had enough plugs already. Right, we've done that bit. The inquiry will take a comprehensive look into everything from commissioning and discoverability to the health impacts and the cultural value of kids' content, a lot of which we'll be discussing on this panel today. Crucially, it will ask how public service and commercial producers can be supported to continue to make outstanding content and how that content can be found, funded and attributed in the new digital ecosystem. There is a chance to speak to the sector with one unified voice, so everyone would encourage everyone here to submit a response by the September the 4th deadline. That is your homework, do not forget it. I'll contact the Foundation, PACT, Animation UK, and all other associations to contribute to theirs. We'll touch on several of the inquiry's key themes in today's panel, and across the conference, from funding pressures to platform strategy to the role of public value in the digital-first world. It's almost like this conference is giving you loads of value in the most important time. So to keep that in mind, please listen to all the sessions over the next couple of days and think about how you might contribute collectively as an industry in your response. The time to speak is right now. It's not right now. The time to listen is right now to this panel, and then speak afterwards. The first question is from... Oh, it's from me. Okay. The first question is from Faraz Osman from Goldwallah, who is me. And my question is really simple, which is simply, Frank had a chat yesterday. So Frank Cottrell-Boyce started our conference this year with what I think is a rather remarkable and inspiring keynote. I think there was actually some tears in the room as well. Thoughts, feelings about that? Patricia, could I come to you first about what you thought about Frank's opening keynote?
I thought it was amazing. Everything that he said resonated so much with what's happening to children and families across the UK. One of the things that I thought was really important that sometimes we don't think enough about is parents, because it is the parents that are going to affect their children's lives in the most substantial way. And if you think about the importance of reading to your children at a very early age, and that's something the child is not going to ask to be read to. You know, the parent needs to understand how important that is in terms of that child acquiring early language skills, which then in turn will allow that child to get on in life, you know, in a much better position, be the best start. And that's something that we're very conscious of at the BBC, and the reason why we've launched CBBS Parenting, which brings together all the education support content we have created during the years with Bite Size and Tiny Happy People, with a fantastic trusted brand like CBBS. So I think we should think more about how, as an industry, we're supporting parents and sending, you know, the right messages. And also that there was something really, really stark and sad to hear, which is the amount of poverty amongst children in this country. 4.5 million children are under poverty line. And that's huge. If you think that that's probably 1/3 of the whole of the children in the UK, that's just crazy. And can we do more there? I mean, I think there's a lot we can do as an industry to get our content to children and parents to inspire them, but how can we get to those that need us most? I think that's a very important subject we should discuss.
And Julian, is that something that is being discussed in the other side of the pond? The other side of the pond? The other side of the channel. The pond's the other direction. The other side of the channel. Are you seeing similar sort of conversations around poverty, around family viewing, and how content is being consumed?
To be honest, not really.
Okay, interesting.
But I was shocked yesterday by that information on the level of poverty here. So I looked at the level of kids' poverty in France, and it's 2.9 million to be compared to the 4.5 that you have here in the UK. So France is in a better situation at that level. I was also really shocked by the idea of bed poverty, knowing that a lot of those kids don't even have bed. So I think he mentioned what's the point of bedtime stories if kids don't have beds? And I was really shocked by that. And I enjoyed in that yesterday first session that idea that we are a community that can have an impact. And I think it's a critical time for the children and youth industry people to come together and have an impact on the way content comes to kids.
And obviously Frank is the Children's Laureate, so he mainly deals in literature, and he spoke about kids reading and also people reading to kids and how important that is. A lot of us here are involved in video content and moving image, but there is still this idea of co-viewing, and obviously Aardman are kind of pioneers in that space, and I think, kind of going to spare all these blushes, but number blocks and alpha blocks has been such a key part of not just entertaining kids, but also educating kids as well. I wonder about, if you think about that when you're doing your IP, are you thinking about just kids, or are you thinking about what that sofa looks like at home, and how do you get that balance right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think family viewing is still so important, and it's that kind of connection that brings within the family unit that's so important. So, I mean, Vengeance Most Foul, our latest Wallace and Gromit film, was on BBC, and we reached...
Never heard of it, never seen it.
21.6 million.
How many?
Slipstreamed Gavin and Stacey, and they were out in front, but after 28 days, we just picked them at the post. So that was, pretty much every household in the UK, which to think that, stories can have that effect at such a national level of bringing people together. I think that is the glue that we need more of to kind of encourage those conversations. Yeah.
And Ollie, are you seeing that people are using your resources as parents to help kind of extend the learning in preschool as well? Or is it just that's good, useful content, let kids sit in front of that and watch that?
So, I mean, I don't know if people know, but the creator of the original Block series, which was Alpha Blocks, and then obviously went through the other blocks, he was originally a teacher, and he formed out of the fact that children were getting no joy from maths learning. It didn't make sense to them and the way it was being. So he wanted to bring something that they could discover themselves and enjoy. And I think the day that we all knew we were winning is when we saw the YouTube stats that showed that the teachers were using it at school as a tool, and the kids loved it so much they were going straight home and putting it on. And then you top that up with the parents writing you letters saying, "My kid is now smart, thank you." The youngest ever kid. It was on the BBC News. The youngest ever kid to get into Mensa. They were in the lounge and they said to Mum, "So you do loads of stuff with him, and what's the key thing to She was like, "No, I don't do anything. He just watches CBeebies and number blocks." And I was like, "Yeah, we've won, we've won." But yeah, parents do enjoy it. We put satire and stuff in there. But I think what the important thing from the first question you asked about the speech yesterday is that we are a community and we are all responsible, whether we're parents, whether we're teachers, whether we're broadcasters. And then moving that on to the review that's going to happen is we should be held accountable. Society, all of us should be held accountable for those poverty figures, what we bring to children. And so we are held accountable when we fail, but, and it's a big but, we need to be funded and regulated to succeed. So you can't just have you're failing, you have to be funded and regulated to succeed, which we're currently not.
But I'm just going to throw this out there. You run a production company. Blue Zoo is obviously, I would argue, the envy of a lot. It's the envy of me. I'm just going to put it there. If I can become Blue Zoo, I'll be happy. But it's the envy of a lot of production companies in this sector. You don't just make blocks.
No.
And do you kind of, sometimes when you're a production company, and particularly when you're working in kids' content, you're like, purpose, purpose, purpose. But sometimes you just want to have a laugh making kids' content and want to make things that are engaging. Are we at risk of trying to solve too many problems with the content that we're making? And how does that work within the kind of IP that you're building?
I don't think you can ever try and solve too many problems for children. It's all a balance. So everything we do, it's we always have different taglines every year, but it basically is what does a child need and what's good for it? So is it something engaging? Can they engage with a character? I think we've all talked about YouTube and the stuff that's a hit a minute and they can scroll on to the next thing and they don't retain anything. So everything we do comes from a place of how will a child engage with it? So anything from Paddington Bear, which isn't our show, but we produce it. We get letters from parents about how beautifully timed that is and how it's their children's favourite show because they can spend time with a character, right through to Mojo, which is action adventure. But again, at the core of that is relationships. There always has to be something for us that there is a point to it. It can't just pointless nonsense. We don't do that.
Okay. We're going to move on to our first question, which is from Adina Pitt, who is an independent content and strategy specialist. Adina, have you got a micro? I'm going to ask you to stand. Sorry. It's good for your legs. Get your there she is.
I haven't had my coffee.
Hey, Adina.
Good morning. I'm going to read this off my phone. So last year, the mood in the industry was that YouTube is disrupting the television business. This year, we can say it's confirmed. YouTube is television. Broadcasters, producers, and regulators seem to be embracing it. So my question is YouTube now the future of children's content, including public service content? And does that mean we give up the idea of controlling quantity and curation?
That's a remarkable question, and not least because it is, the big conversation of this conference, I think. Emma, I'm going to start with you because obviously Aardman spent a long time making something, so you probably see the platforms changing while you're making that content. Yeah. How are you managing that, and is YouTube now your primary platform? I
think it's a creative and commercial imperative to be present on YouTube for any children's brand. We've got to be where our audience are spending time, but I think we very much see that as a companion to our broadcast content. And what we put there is going to be different. It's tailored to how people want to kind of consume on that platform. So there might be different thematic collections or compilations that kind of tap into whether it's Wimbledon or the Olympics and sort of drive more of that cultural kind of conversation in the moment versus the longer form series. But I think for discovery and kind of making sure that, we are creating that noise and pointing people back to the kind of the series, that's really important for us to be there. And I think it's as much about reach as it is about creating that kind of community and for parents too, kind of having that accessibility. But I think the other thing that we're sort of thinking quite heavily about with YouTube is, it is also a place where new creators are gravitating to, and that is, we're, founded on Nick Park and Peter Lord and Davis Broxton. They started as students. And that was the genesis, So how can we find that next generation?
So are you using it as a recruitment engine as well then? Are you
I would say recruitment engine,
talent?
but we want to invite creators into Aardman. That is absolutely part of what we do through our Aardman Academy, but also, creators, around the country. So it's sort of definitely something, how do we partner with them in their own space? What does that look like? I think that's interesting to explore and something we're thinking about. But equally, maybe we'll find the next Nick Park, who knows? So I think it's respecting where creators are gravitating to and supporting them to kind of come into different ecosystems, whether that's, linear, but also via YouTube.
Patricia, is YouTube better than iPlayer?
It's different. It's a different experience. I mean, we can't just throw the baby with the bathwater. We can't just say, okay, let's all move to YouTube. It is true, 45% of share of viewing, of all video viewing, of all broadcasts, this is happening on YouTube. But that doesn't mean that there isn't another share of viewing that is happening elsewhere. And iPlayer has been doing extremely well in the past few years. I mean, we are the fastest growing streamer in the UK, and that's all streamers. We're the fastest growing streamer in the UK. We have grown our children's viewing by 40% in the last three years, and is that we get about 190 million views of our content every single month. Those are big figures. So whilst, of course, on
iPlayer.
On iPlayer. Whilst, of course, we know that, a lot of children are actually viewing content on YouTube, we can't just forget that iPlayer and what we're doing there and the type of content that we're building there is really important. Now, looking at YouTube, because we have to be, as public service, we need to reach the audience where they are, and we're very cognizant of that. We are looking at increasing the amount of content and the way that we are interacting with YouTube, and not just putting clips there, but actually creating content that is a YouTube-first type of content.
So you'll specifically be commissioning content that starts on YouTube rather than starts on... That's interesting.
That's what we're thinking about now. We are starting with putting some of the content that feels that should be on YouTube as well as iPlayer right now. So something like Newsround. The Newsround bulletin is streamed every single day on YouTube, so it goes in. You can't put it on YouTube because then it would stay forever and then it would confuse people because it's a bulletin. So you basically stream it in and then the next day you have another one.
And you won't be able to watch that on the channel or on iPlayer?
You can watch it on channel, you can watch it on iPlayer, you can watch it everywhere. It's all about, windowing and getting your content out there. We're also, we have also launched streaming CBBS channels that are themed around different subjects. And those channels are doing really well. And it's like a linear, imagine like a linear CBBS experience on YouTube with your CBBS house presenters, weaving in stories and using clips of our best and most loved shows to talk about different subjects. And
Ollie,
that's something that we're creating as well now.
Ollie, when Blue Stews started, was YouTube around? Sorry, I don't know if I'm aging you, but I don't know. Was YouTube even part of your
DVDs weren't around.
DVDs were around. But Number Blocks did do really well in DVDs, right? That was originally, that's where your secondary rights were.
That was.
Where does YouTube sit in your business strategy now? Is it the top? Is it still the BBC that's the top, and that's where you go get commissions first? Do you think that this platform... how are you?
I think my frustration is if the YouTube were here doing a presentation, they are here, hello, and we love them, but they would have Number Blocks on, and obviously the BBC are proud and they have Number Blocks on. I think the reality is all the money we would make from YouTube wouldn't fund the shows. So without the BBC and without their brave commissioning choices way back when and their continued support, those shows don't exist. So we see we see YouTube as like the global gravy that makes it worth doing the shows commercially. But again, without the BBC, and they're the only people that would have commissioned those shows. They're the only people that did. They're the only people that would. And so it's...
And is that a trend, though? Is that just continuing, and you think that will continue for many times to come, or are you seeing a graph where it's going to intersect at one? Are we going to see a...
No, I mean, I don't believe it is, because of, obviously, the regulations around advertising to children. The revenues are so much... You know, we had one point... If we were as big as we are now, before the new rules came in, I'd be on a beach in Hawaii maybe. But the problem is that not the case. We live in the reality of, you know, quite rightly, we can't mind children, and we can't all those good things. So without the public service bit of it, and that is not to diminish what YouTube does for our business at all, because we love them and they help us, and it lets children all around the world see this great content that fulfills their lives. But it simply wouldn't happen without the BBC, which is why public service funding and broadcasting is so important.
Julian, you're obviously building IP and kind of new digital platforms. That's a key to what you're doing right now. Is YouTube the kind of almost like the foundation of the work that you're doing right now, or is it a value add?
It's as a foundation, and I think for our whole business, it's something that it's a great tool. It's a great tool. It's really the present of children's television, not the future of children's television. It's been around for 20 years when you think about it. So if you think about the massive latest success of our industry, all of them have a footprint on YouTube. It's impossible to establish a brand worldwide without a YouTube footprint. So we love YouTube. It's also bringing a lot of questions in terms of financing. We need to work differently to find new business models. And this is what we are doing with the digital-first lineups that we initiated this year in ANSI. So we are working with the creator economy, with people that we find on YouTube to build new IPs that will be broadcast directly on YouTube, and then that we will then propose to our partners all around the globe. So we work with an NFT company called Clenosaur in Canada. That will be our first digital original production. And we also work with a fantastic company called El Reino Infantil, which is a digital media company based in Brazil, in Argentina, sorry. And that is having a fantastic power on YouTube. I think they have more than 250 billion views on that digital media.
So that's interesting, because previously in this conference we've talked about the necessity to think clever when it comes to different funding models, but we're also having to think clever when it comes to different delivery models and discovery methods as well. That's kind of where we're moving forward.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And when you think about it, it's a fantastic tool for kids on a daily basis. I mean, I would be a kid, and in a way, I'm still in my brain a kid. I would be daily using YouTube to not only to consume, but also to create content.
I'm sure there's going to be huge amounts more that we can talk about this. And in fact, today, I don't even know what day of the week it is. Wednesday today, isn't it? Yeah, today at 11:10, there will be a session called Understanding Kids, YouTube, Friend or Frenemy, later on today, 11:10, as well as what's next in Kids TV commissioning. I'm going to move on to a question from Alison Stewart, who's a CMF board member. Where's Alison? There she is. She's right there. I've got a feeling that's not the last time we're going to hear about YouTube on,
Hello. Yes, I am a board member of the Children's Media Foundation. And our question follows on from what you're talking about, really, and what Farah's referenced at the very beginning of this session. So as content is increasingly shifting to streaming platforms, digital platforms that are driven by algorithms, what does it mean for people making original content, quality content, content of public value? Can producers still make ambitious original content for children on these platforms? Or are we getting to be in a system where it's only the big franchises or the low-cost, high-speed turnaround stuff can actually get made and get seen? So it's about discoverability as well as funding, I suppose. It's two things.
So I'm slightly biased on this because obviously I'm a smaller producer and we don't have, we have some IP, but we're trying to build it along the way. We're constantly in competition with like things that, Wallace and Gromit is a great example. It's really difficult sometimes for us to walk in a room and kind of go, here's a completely new idea. I wonder, is that a challenge that you're facing as well when you're coming up with new IP?
I have to say no. And I think the industry is a bit stuck in that idea that only big IPs are being made. In a way, it's a fake news.
Okay.
I see a lot of commissioners in Europe, and not only in Europe, that are really looking for new IPs, new shows, and not only evergreen IPs that you reboot. At Media One Kids and Family, where we gather 8 different studios in Europe, we are currently producing 15 shows in Europe. Half of them are pure original IPs that we manage to finance thanks mainly to the public broadcasters in Europe, who really are daring to do new stuff. The BBC, France TV, RAI, all the German public broadcasters are also into that wave of innovation and building new universes for new generation of kids. So I don't experience that. I can feel that there is something, of course, when you see the streamers, if you come with a big, very well-established IPs, and we are lucky to be the home of Miraculous Ladybug, they are very positive about something that is already very strong. They want more and more content that comes with data, with engagement, with fans, so we also do that. But I think the community shouldn't be stuck in that idea.
Patricia, one of your biggest new hits on CBBC has been the Gladiator show, and which is Epic Pranks has done really, really well. Mm-hmm. So when you're kind of having people come to you with established IP, how tempting is it to kind of go, oh, that's just built-in audience, I'll have that? Or are you prioritizing kind of original formats and as part of your commissioning team, it's always about launching new things?
Yeah. Well, it's what Julian just said. You know, of course, if they bring something that we feel is going to bring in those families because of that nostalgia feeling, which is what Gladiators actually did, we're not going to say no to that. We'd be crazy not to say no to that. But on the other side, what we're always saying our commissioners are always saying to indies and to the industry, bring me something that I haven't seen before. Bring me something new. The BBC has always been at the forefront of innovation when it comes to children's content. And if, you know, from Number Blocks to Horrible Histories, who would have actually commissioned a program like that anywhere, not just in the UK, in the world? I can assure you, you know, where I have been working in the past in the different companies, we would have never commissioned something like that because it's too risky. So the beauty of the way that the BBC is funded is that it gives you that possibility. This country has an amazing creative force in terms of the content that is being made for children. And I believe strongly that it's the BBC that is helping make that happen. Because if you don't have that possibility, that you are so well funded, you're not going to take those risks. But as Julian is saying, I do believe that it is a bit of fake news, and maybe that's what you know, some buyers might say, you know, not to buy your show. I'm just looking for franchises, but actually, look at what just happened with that Netflix show that is being launched, the Demon Hunters.
The K-pop show. Yeah.
God, you know, was that a big franchise? No, it was not. It was not.
K-pop's a bit of a franchise.
K-pop, but K-pop is not a franchise.
Course, yeah.
It's a movement. It's a music movement. What is you know, that show is an unknown show, and it's just rocketed. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know that show before they commissioned it. So I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, I don't think that it's just only franchises and cheap content that is going to move us forward. I think that's what's going to kill us if we just focus on that.
That K-pop show's got a sick soundtrack as well. So, Ollie, like, there's a lot of people in this room that have got new IPs in their back pocket and are looking to sell them. What advice have you got for them in this market, which is really challenging, about how they can keep their resilience up and if they really believe in it?
It's just like $1 million question. Yeah, to tell everyone how to make a show. I think that
literally is $1 million idea. So
yeah.
I've got $1 million idea, Ollie. How do I sell it?
Well, I think there are many good ideas that don't get made. That I think there should be more funding to do more for children, but that doesn't help them as of like today. I think we need to look at YouTube and traditional televisions almost as like different experiences. So everyone like lumps them in the same pot, but my kids definitely get something very different out of the two things. Just as you wouldn't compare going to the cinema with watching your telly, that's a different experience. So I think design your content for the experience you want that child to have. If you just want to make a load of money, there's a lot of articles written on all the things you need to do on YouTube to make a lot of money, and how often you need to like go, and then they'll watch, oh God, they've done something weird, and watch for a little bit longer. To me, it doesn't add any value to a child. If you want to make something that seriously adds value for a child, we're very lucky. You know, I'll always say the BBC doesn't fund children's enough, but we're very lucky to have them, and we're very lucky to have the potential to get those things. If you want to do something really good for children, you have a really strong idea that's going to help. You know, I'd still go to the public services first and try and do things more traditionally. But you have to consider them different experiences. Doesn't mean low-cost stuff has no value, but you have to then find a way of promote. It's more like the old film industry of like, just because you shove it on YouTube doesn't mean a kid's going to find it, even if it's very good. How do you promote it? How do you get it up there? It's difficult.
Emma, I'm kind of assuming that Kate Phillips, a new kind of content controller at the BBC, has she sent you an email yet saying, do you fancy doing another Wallace and Gromit like this?
Not yet, but I'm glad you've mentioned it.
Well, are you glad I mentioned it? Because I also imagine that you get lots of emails from Netflix and Amazon kind of going, we want our version of Wallace and Gromit. We don't want to just take Wallace and Gromit. We want to have a hit that people get excited about every time it comes around. How are you managing that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, this idea of sort of brands versus new IP. I think I think the BBC is an exception in that kind of desire for new IP. I think a lot of the commercial broadcasters have a little bit more risk that they're shouldering at the moment, and that risk turns to kind of, nervousness to try new things. And whilst there is still new IP, obviously, kind of in demand, and people are going there, it feels like there are fewer opportunities, I think, collectively, for everyone to try something new. So we do get asked more often for, a brand, maybe not a show. So what is the bigger vision for this beyond the content? And that's something, that is exciting to think about, because we can kind of think of it in a live experience, in a YouTube setting, in social, what is the ecosystem that we want to kind of provide. But I think, Aardman is unique in that we have kind of quite a specific look and feel. So we do get a lot of approaches from, different partners and different IPs. We've recently announced that we're doing a project with Pokemon, which is very much a kind of creative collaboration. That is Aardman in that world. And similarly working with Mattel to look at a new series of Pingu and co-develop that together. So there is how does kind of our look and world meet other areas? And so that provides that sort of basket, if you like, that IP, that known quantity, that broadcasters, I think, feel they need that hook often to bring people in. But I think, there is pressure to stand out in the noise, and it is how do you find that hook for people?
But it is interesting because Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep, they are Aardman IPs. You obviously talked about Pokemon and Pingu. They aren't Aardman IPs, are they? So there is I'm going to ask the question, have you started work on the next Wallace and Gromit? Has that started yet?
Nick has had a very busy time, but he is starting to think about the what next. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add, because the question was slightly about algorithms.
Sorry, yes, of course.
And the previous question was about curation, and we didn't touch on that at all. I think one of the problems we've got is now when a child migrates to YouTube or big YouTube, which they do way earlier than they should do, they just do, that's just a fact, is that how are we getting them to see the stuff that is not directly in front of them? Because I was saying earlier, my youngest child is stuck in people wedged in holes and Hitler at the moment. That's his algorithm. And how do we... He's learning some very interesting stuff, but how do we get him to look to all the like shiny stuff to the side of that? And that comes back to algorithm and curation. Because the great thing about the BBC, be it linear or be it on their player, is he can see, there's a thing about dinosaurs there's a thing here, there's a thing. On YouTube, he simply doesn't get that at the moment. And I think there's a responsibility to shape children by letting them explore the world, not just like funnel them down. And that's not against YouTube. That is about how kids use YouTube and how we can possibly bring something in that will deflect them into other bits.
What do you ask? Are you suggesting that there needs to be an intervention, like from state level, or are you saying that parents need to do more to understand how their kids?
I don't think it's anything to do with like state. I think YouTube need to accept that in reality across the world, after like parents and maybe in some societies education, they are the third biggest global child influence on a child's life, and they need to look at that and say, how do I use that power, not for like, oh, this is how much an advert costs, or how do I use that power and that responsibility to let children explore the world in a meaningful way. So that could be higher quality content. It could mean less generated AI noise content. It could be less rip-offs of my show that appear on there. It could mean any of that stuff. But think
you're talking about tweaks to the algorithm then, is that
I think they should present to us what they're going to do to help all children from an altruistic point of view, not from a commercial point of view.
Okay. But that's an interesting position, because obviously you said that you are, I don't want to say making content for YouTube, but you're looking at YouTube as part of a bigger strategy around children's. When I was working at children's and digital was first starting out, I was always talked about the walled garden. It's a safe place that parents can go to the BBC. They've got a walled garden. They're 3 clicks away from any content. If you're putting things on YouTube now, you're no longer 3 clicks away from, I was going to say Hitler content. I don't know if I want to say that, but like there are some of the most nefarious things on YouTube that I would argue has caused real damage to society, and you're going to be putting your content next to that. How are you balancing that tension?
Well, hopefully we won't be putting our content next to that. And
but do you have control over that?
As Solly says, I think YouTube needs to think about how it's surfacing that content for children and what goes next to that content. That's one thing that we can control that. But it's not a question. We cannot not be on YouTube. If we're not on YouTube, as we're talking about, if we have to bring relevance and the BBC brand with children of today and children of tomorrow, we have to be where they are. So it's, maybe they would talk more about this in the later session of the YouTube as a frenemy, because it is unavoidable for us. We have to be there, and it is our public service remit to bring that content to children where they are. So that's what we're doing.
And because they're not here, like I'm going to be the voice of YouTube, they are looking, like I saw a presentation last week, they are looking at how they can deliver higher quality stuff that is good for kids. They are looking at all this, and they've got a collective group of people together, not us, which I'm very angry about, but we've got a collection of people together who are saying,
wellbeing,
youth and wellbeing, and they are looking at it. For me, they're trying to do. They're pushing in the right direction. I'd like them to go harder and faster and work it out. And
is there a YouTube video that I can watch that presentation?
They'll do you one.
Ken Anderson. Ken, where are you? Right over here.
Hello. Hi. The idea of responsibility and accountability seems to be coming through here for me. And just adding to that, I think with broadcasters squeezed and international funding disrupted by the trade tensions that exist, no names, and streamers scaling back investment in kids' content, where does sustainable financing for children's production now come from? And who's actually going to step in to fill that gap?
Ken, sorry, do you mind if I ask you what your background is?
I'm a producer.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was hoping that you had funding then. Like, I've got loads of money, I'm going to fund stuff. I'm going to ask a really quick question. Emma, where's your money coming from?
Lots of different places now, more different
That's
places.
very diplomatic of you.
But I think the BBC is crucial. Public service funding is crucial, for, as we've said, for new IP. But I think, in terms of what we've talked a lot to is the YouTube model. The ad revenue there is not enough to fund the content. Ollie's right, and it is. You have to look at a much more franchise model to support that. So whether that is sponsorship, whether that is merchandise, whether that is looking at actually licensing content. So we've produced our own digital series, Timmy Tunes, and we've licensed it back to the BBC and ABC and some others. So sort of starting to actually look at the model flipped, but that investment, that risk sits with us. So that's that's a decision to make. But it is much more diversified, and that risk has to be spread. I think on the long-form content side, there are much more co-productions, I think, than we've ever seen before. We're having to collaborate much more, whereas before you might have 2 co-producers. We're now looking at 3, 4, 5. It's getting much more complex. But with that comes, really good opportunities for collaboration and creative collaboration as well, which feels exciting, and kind of working more closely internationally with lots of different partners to sort of understand what their audience needs. So I think there's a challenge and complexity to it for sure, but there is an opportunity that comes with that.
Julian, are you seeing? We've had obviously some tax breaks here in the UK. there are tax breaks in lots of other countries. When you're kind of looking internationally, and it sounds like you've got some really innovative funding models, what are the ones that we should all be aiming our targets at? Like, this seems to be working for you.
I'm going to be very French and say that you should really be inspired by the French model.
Okay.
I think it's been set up for more than 30 years now. And the funny thing, and I think we are in a very similar situation globally now, when it was set up in France, end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, we had a big issue in kids' TV. That was that French children were only watching Japanese and American content. So at some point, politicians and parents, there was a big debate, and the old quota system, investment and broadcasting quota system, was set up based on that situation. So nearly 40 years after, globally, I think we are in the same situation, because I don't believe there is an animation crisis. There is a crisis in animation for kids and children. Still, the streamers are investing a lot into animation, but they invest into anime, because anime has a broader audience. Anime is becoming something really mainstream. You have mentioned the big success of Netflix in the last weeks on that IP. So I think we are in a situation now that we need to set up a new regulation system, maybe more global, so that investment on children content, on quality, premium, impactful content for children is organized in each territory, but also probably globally. And in terms of soft money, many things have to be copied from the French system, but there is also, and that's the beauty of that new game that we are playing in co-producing content, there is a real competition in soft money. When you think about it, California has a new soft money system to sustain production of animation. So even the US are now in the system of trying to empower their local production. So this is something that the animation producers are really strong at. It's a superpower we have in that community. We know how to resolve very complex financing situation, and for the future of the industry, it's completely critical.
Ollie, I'm going to ask, has there been any new purchase orders that you've got from crazy countries or places that you weren't expecting in recently that has started going, or maybe there's a new opportunity there that we haven't found with Blue Zoo before? I mean, anime is a really interesting conversation. I mean, do you make, your animation, I don't know if you see a difference, or are you starting to experiment in that style of content?
It's a style. I mean, as a studio, it's going to sound like I'm bad. We're not plastic. We're not known for any one particular style. So obviously we've done some of the Magic Light things we do. We try and bring a different style to everything we do. I think people would recognise a Blue Zoo show in a way, but we do try and pick different styles. So I think anime, again, it's just a different style, different technique. Lots of people in our studio like it, and it's their drawing style and stuff. So I could see us making it, but I don't know if I see that as an opportunity for like more funding. It's another thing I can do, but the funding, I think, will still be like complicated. I think
has it got more complicated, or is it becoming simpler to navigate?
No, I just think it gets, as things like go everywhere, I think it gets increasingly complicated. But, and I'm sorry to bang on about it, but I did my maths here. Like, a child is at school 6 hours a day, where we care about them and we spend billions and billions and billions, not enough on education, but billions and billions of pounds. They come home and they watch 3 hours of content.
Yeah.
And we spend virtually nothing.
Yeah. And
we're the third biggest caregiver, and we do half the amount.
You mean television's the third biggest caregiver?
Well, just content. And I just can't understand.
Not you just haven't got a massive nurse.
Yeah, we do 3 hours a day. All the children have to have regimen. No, but I think if you looked at those two figures and then thought about it realistically, the underspend on that, and I think we're doing the cultural research as part of the DCMA. How culture does it affect children? I think it goes beyond that now. I think it's like a question of, with social media included in it, I think it's a question of like health. I think it's mental health. I think it's really easy to identify other problems of like, obesity. We see fat children, they get diabetes, and we all go, it's terrible, we've got to do something about it. Or we hear about poverty, and I see at my school children, turning up like dirty and haven't eaten, and you have to provide them with breakfast. And we see those issues, so we do something about them. But I think actually 3 hours a day, if they're getting the wrong thing, I think we could be changing how cognitively young minds work through the content they're watching. And I think that is a health crisis waiting to come.
So that's interesting. So are you saying that you don't think funding should just come from DCMS, do we need to be talking to Department of Health Department of Education? Like, is it a pan-government thing rather than just be seen as
I think it's a pan-society thing. Again, I wouldn't just pin it. I'd say like philanthropic. I'd say private, public. I love the BBC, but I would say proportionally fund kids stuff. They're the future. Don't just think it's like this genre of, we've got this, way back when, it was just like, we've got this money, we do some children's things. Now it's much more thought about, but I still think just they're the future, like spend more on it, and don't just think about it going on iPlayer. Think about how that content can be used in schools. How can it be interactive? How can you change kids' lives who can't learn in a linear fashion? There's so much we can do with content. I'm just really concerned about the loops kids get stuck in on social media and other stuff. And I think it takes regulation, it takes funding, and I think it takes a lot. I think it has to be like, we have to really shake it up. It can't be. I think for years we've tried to just tweak it and go back. We loved how the BBC used to be when there were only 5 channels. We want to go. That's gone. How do we disruptively change it now? And it could be it has to be everyone doing something. I think for years as well, we've all gone, you do something, you do something. We already do this. We're not doing any more. We do this, we do this, we do this. I think now it's like everyone has to put their hand up and say, well, here's actually what we're going to do, and here's how much money we're going to spend on it.
Patricia, I kind of half joking that, like, at the beginning of this, to say that, like, you're single-handedly kind of propping up the kids market in the UK, but it's, based on some of these conversations, it's not far from the truth. How do you feel proud about that? Are you kind of annoyed about that like not more things being done elsewhere? Like, what are your emotions when it comes to what the BBC is doing for children's content right now?
Well, I must say, it's not just the UK, it's the world. We're the biggest commissioner of children content in the world, the BBC. And I don't feel proud about that. I mean, of course, it's fantastic that we're doing that. But if you think about it in the big global economics of, content made for children, it's crazy that the BBC is now become the biggest commissioner of children's content in the world because everybody else has given up. And that's the problem that we're facing, because the BBC alone cannot sustain this industry, let alone in the UK or in the world. Yeah, that's just madness. And we do need the co-production partners to be able to create all the content, all the great content that we're creating. So we are in a system, in a global system, like you're saying. We are looking for those partners everywhere to be able to deliver that content. But it's not just about the making of the content; it's about the discovery of the content. And I think that's where you're talking about this, being exposed to content that is not appropriate to these ages. And that is something that is going to need other type of thinking. I mean, I know that talking about France again, not because I'm a really good friend of Julian's, but because France has actually been leading in that space. Some of the interventions that the French have done in the past to protect their children and protect their culture, I think they're things that we should be looking at.
But there is that phrase that when America America sneezes, Britain catches a cold. I would argue that America's got a bit of explosive diarrhea at the moment, and there's a kind of conversation. I don't think clearly from this room I'm not alone in that thought process. But there's obviously been lots of chatter about PBS and Sesame Street, and Trump is like weirdly going to war with Big Bird. Are you kind of concerned that the culture wars will start moving in this direction as well, and we will start seeing there's obviously lots of pressure on the BBC right now, and that will have an impact on children's producers. Are you worried about that, or are you just going to have to take it day by day?
I'm not worried. I mean, I'm worried about.
So I feel like I'm asking if you're worried about explosive diarrhea. That's not my question.
I'm worried about the world giving up on children. I really am worried about that. I think that it is underestimated, the power of media with children, and I am worried about that. But
Netflix did have stepped in to save Sesame Street. So should we be hopeful about that, or can the market fix this, or do we still need lots of public intervention?
Just because they have bought a second window on Sesame Street doesn't mean that they have come and saved the day. Okay. I mean, Netflix needs to, think about, if they have such traction with children in this country and in all of the countries, what are they doing about it? How are they balancing the content that they're delivering to those children that is not just American content or, old content that they're not renewing, and investing in new content and investing in content that is relevant, culturally relevant to the audiences they are serving. And that's something that we're not seeing enough of. And I think, everybody has a responsibility. If you're targeting children, you have a responsibility. How are you going to deal with it? Like you're saying, Ollie, how is YouTube going to take that responsibility? How are we all going to take that responsibility if we are targeting children? I think that's the question.
I'd rather we weren't all forced to by the government. It seems terrible, doesn't it, that a government would have to say, you really should do something good for kids. Like, most people are parents, and most people here are doing this job for kids. But it seems terrible that the government would have to say, don't forget children.
But it is about discovery as well. There needs to be a better job where we can tell parents, families, teachers what quality content is and looks like, and lead children in that direction.
And there's YouTube Educate, that thing for there is stuff, but I think you've got to kind of deal with it probably on the main source of YouTube, which is on the channel of like how when they're on the main channel and viewing kids stuff, how do we navigate around there? How do we fund big ambitious shows for kids? It's a question for everyone. This isn't like a YouTube thing. YouTube have just they've done very well, and well done to them. But that comes with great power, comes great responsibility. That sort of thing.
Speaking of great power, Steve Smith, you've got a lot of power. You're at Beacus Animation. You've got a question for us right over here.
Hello, hi. It's a quick question, but a big question. Where is AI leading us? And more importantly, where is it leading our kids?
I'm literally asking ChatGPT what the answer to that question is. I'll tell you what it comes with, but before I get there, Emma, are you using AI? I mean, it feels like you're like the antithesis of AI at Aardman, because everything is, you can literally see the thumbprints on some of the plasticine in the shots that you have.
I think everyone assumes with that handmade kind of, I guess, ness that doesn't come with necessarily all the tech. It does. There's a huge amount of technology behind it, and we do use AI tools. I think a lot of us have been using a lot of AI tools in the technologies we've used for a while. Generative AI is something separate. I think that's something that is a different conversation. But copyright issues aside, I think that we want to embrace AI as a tool. Humans at the centre, but how does it service what we want to do creatively, and how does it fit within, how we want to create content, serve that to our audiences, and also our audience's expectation. There's been a few instances where I know kind of other stop frame companies have been putting out content that might have lent on AI and not being clear, and audiences don't like it. They want, they have an expectation, and we want to honour that expectation, I think, and make sure that we're giving them what they want. And people, ironically, with all of the new content that is AI created, there's more of an obsession than ever with the handmade, and understanding kind of how people have actually, how did that metal skeleton in that puppet get created? How have you captured 2 seconds in a day? What are the processes behind that? So I think we've got an opportunity there to bring people into that, but whilst, absolutely embracing the tools where they make sense for us.
Ollie, how tempted are you to hit the AI button when you need to get some content out and turn it around?
I hit the AI button at 12:30 last night when I had to give a feedback on a load of stuff. Just to say, I could either spend ages like hand colouring something in that I wanted, or I could tell AI and say, look, it is 12:30. I've done it on AI, and this is in general. But as well as solving the bit that I wanted to solve, it then added 4 extra eyes to something over here and 7 things. And you have to use it as a tool. It's essentially a tool. It's a prediction engine. It's a tool. My issue with it is it only exists on past. It can only look in the past, right? It can only see all the stuff we've done. And as a human race, we haven't always been great at doing stuff, and we haven't always been fair to everyone. And so, is there inherent bias in some of the stuff that it will churn out? Certainly, last night it turned a dark-skinned character into a white character just because it chose to do that. And it's like, is that an inherent problem with it? But I think what we're groping for is an ethical line in the sand. And at Blue Zoo, our position is changing all the time. And I think I don't think anyone's got to where this ethical line is in any sort of way that they use AI at the moment. I think I think it's our biggest challenge as a planet. Is like where do you draw the line on that?
I always get told it's worth noting that current today it's the worst it's ever going to be. So it's only ever going to improve. You're thing about 7 legs and 4 eyes. It's like, it's going to get better and better every day. And we have to be mindful that what we see today is not really what it's going to be like in the future. Is your commissioning team triaging? There's so many submissions, so many production companies coming through all the time. Are they using AI to triage ideas? How are you using AI within the BBC? Obviously, there's rules around generative AI. But
we want to use AI for good. One of the things that we're doing with the AI right now, which is we're very excited about, is how we're using it for education to enhance the bite-sized platform, which is already, a really important service that we provide, because we know that children learn at very different paces and stages, and we are using AI to create adaptive learning, and to make sure that every child has a personalized learning experience. But we're also going beyond. We are piloting currently a Gen AI kind of tutor, friend, advisor for.
Is it a paperclip?
Sorry?
Is it a paper?
No. For bite size, okay. And looking at how we can actually create a much more engaging experience for children when they're learning within our platforms.
Julian, is this just makes your life a lot easier, or are you finding it's going to be?
We are fascinated by AI, and I think at Blue Zoo we are building and writing right now a manifesto, so that our teams know what they can do, and we do that with the teams. But if done well, I think it can really resolve one of the main issues of the animation industry, which is the pace of production. In between the editorial decision of a commissioner and a creative team and the time it's delivered. Sometimes it takes 3 years to do a show, which at the time of YouTube and at the time of social network is something that I think we should focus on resolving. So we are positive about that, if done well. And also, if I take back my commissioning and programming hat, because I've done that for most of my career, I think the algorithm and AI are going to help us to resolve the big discoverability issue that we have and that we were talking of before. Kids, as adults, are stuck in a kind of paradox choice. It happens to all of us when you spend hours trying to find content on a streaming platform. And for kids, it's also that same thing of they like Paw Patrol. They only are proposed Paw Patrol. And I think streaming platforms, as legacy media, are going to work more and more on tools, agents, that will help navigate the content, and that will be decided at a programming level in channel organization, the kind of recipe, the kind of mix that you want to propose to different viewers around the globe. So I see that as something that can really help us build new brands, because Netflix, Max, Disney will really better balance what they are proposing to kids worldwide.
Well, ChatGPT said AI is neither inherently good or bad. It's a tool, and a profoundly powerful one. Where it leads us depends on who builds it, how we regulate it, and whether young people are taught to engage critically with it. And I am going to be copying and pasting that and putting it on my LinkedIn. We are pretty much at the end. I've got a very quick question from Alex Holmes, who's at Children in Need and the Diana Award. We might need very quick one-word answers to what is a very profound question, but Alex.
A profound question. So yesterday at a gathering, industry were full of talk around the stress that individuals are facing, particularly around prospects and the future. And I think that's a big theme across the sessions, particularly for young people, children, young people. There's sessions around resilience. I'm actually moderating that one, shaping, not shaking, at 2 p.m. See you there. But there's also themes around young boys and men and the challenges that they're facing and well-being. So I suppose as senior leaders, my question, I suppose, to you is what is your message to industry that are struggling? What is your message of hope? And also for children and young people reflecting on those challenges. I know you've touched on this. What are you actively doing, and what sort of coalitions are you looking for to actually respond to some of these challenges that we know children and young people are facing and trying to navigate?
I wanted to get this question in from Alex because I think it's really important, but I think it should be a theme of the whole conference about the audience and the challenges that the audience are facing. We haven't got a huge amount of time, but is there anybody that kind of wanted to give a particular point on this and the challenges that young people are facing right now? and how we can help as content creators.
I mean, I just think it's an opportunity of great content to bring people together and kind of have that connection. And that is, hopefully a huge de-stressor to have those co-viewing, that human connection amongst families and the values that brings. So our company mission is to make you smile. So hopefully if we can bring a smile, and that helps.
I mean, I don't think you could sum it up in a better way. I mean, that's I think that's absolutely what we should be looking at doing. That's us. There are obviously huge amounts more questions that we will be answering and raising across the conference. So thank you all for joining us for this session. I want to thank our sponsor again, Magic Light Pictures. Quick reminder, you can view the timetable and conference on the CMC app, which I haven't downloaded yet, and I should be doing right now. And that is sponsored by S4C. The next session in here is Digital Discussions, YouTube, more than hitting upload at 11 a.m. But please do clear the room as quickly as possible so they can turn that around. And no stage invasion, please. You can talk to speakers over coffee. They will be here. You'll hear all for the whole conference. They're like subtly nodding. But they'll also be around the showroom bar upstairs and across the road in Hubs, which is sponsored by Omen Studios. Please, can I have a massive round of applause for this? Your panel.